Hello, everyone. My name is Alexandra Orlando, and I'm the community manager at Kitfox Games, the publisher of Dwarf Fortress. And I'm here with Dabu, the composer of the Dwarf Fortress soundtrack, to go over some cool facts and some interesting in-depth stuff about the soundtrack. For those of you who don't know, Dwarf Fortress is a simulation game where you manage your group of dwarves to survive in a hostile wilderness. There are two different modes of Dwarf Fortress. Fortress mode, where it's more of a base builder, simulation management type game, and adventure mode, which is more of the roguelike RPG. And both those modes have their own soundtrack. So, Dabu, let's just get right into it. What is the difference between the Fortress mode soundtrack and the adventure mode soundtrack?
Yeah, I think it was important to make them distinct from each other, especially because of how different the gameplay is. And so we went with the newer soundtrack, the adventure mode soundtrack, has a lot more low end. It has a lot more movement, energy, clapping. It's just fun, a lot more fun overall, whereas the first soundtrack was a little bit thinner, more background, a little bit more depressing.
More depressing to go along with the depressing things that inevitably happen to your dwarves. It's
Pretty
very fitting.
pretty much. And one of those examples to make it sound more rowdy, more movement was adding a lot of clapping. People think that they're like castanettas or flamenco stuff, but it's mostly just me in my bedroom clapping over and over again, trying to make it sound like it's a big group of people. And I can kind of show you what that sounds like. So this song is called Beyond the Gates. Let's just hear that little part without us soloing anything for now. So yeah, those are the claps. And if we just solo these claps, they're just individual. It's very simple. Just don't sound very good. And and if you remove the effects from that, it sounds even more like me sitting.
Yeah, that is literally, yeah, just you clapping. Yeah.
And then as we layer them. So yeah, by adding more variation, more volume to some, clapping a little harder, a little softer, and then adding a bunch of effects and reverb, it gives this impression that there's a big group of people clapping. And I had the privilege of being able to clap a group of people in the Middle East that did these singular claps, and it really sold the idea of a larger group of people. And so that coupled with the first soundtrack, or the first recordings of clapping, kind of fake it into being a bigger group. That was one thing we wanted to consider, and to add a lot of movement. But another thing that we added into the game was called the stem jukebox, and it allows the game to kind of pick and choose what stems it wants to play, and that way players. Don't hear the song the same way twice, and different players have different experiences. So the song jukebox system could choose to, for example, play the claps and the drums on their own for a bit. I can choose to do the main guitar. Alternatively, it could have chosen something different, so some other player might get the drums and the claps with the accent guitar. And there's a lot of combinations there, right? Like I could have just chosen to do pads and guitar rather than having the drums kick in.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Without the clapping at all. Yeah.
And that's another difference with like why the structure is different in adventure mode, was to allow for this system to work. If we had taken the old system or the old songs, it wouldn't have worked as well. So yeah, that's a little bit of the differences there. There's also a new kind of tavern song, which was a fan favorite on the first soundtrack. So we wanted to keep a second tavern song, but have it be a lot more rowdy to fit adventure mode. And I can show you a little bit about that. So this is Sisters of War, and the idea was we have basically the fictional band in the game, which is myself and Simone. We are the Crow Skulls, and we perform around the Dwarf Fortress world, right? Our first performance was in the tavern in Fortress mode, and that was Drink and Industry. And our second performance, we were invited to a castle of mostly female soldiers. A very intimidating place to perform, but we did our best. And we really had to sell that vibe that, we're in a intimidating castle and there's a lot of people in here. And I would have loved to record a real choir or record, a group of people and give them like directions. But unfortunately, timing wise, it didn't work out. Budget wise, didn't work out. And so we had to fake almost all of it. You'll notice that a lot of these tracks say replace, but we did not. And I am partly the female sergeant that yells out these things. So you can hear that this is like pitched up and me trying to make my best impression. And then I stacked another one just to make it sound a little bit better. And we weren't satisfied with that. So we asked Simone's partner to do a third take, which is the loudest take and is stacked on top. So originally this was just supposed to be replaced with something because we had this sample playing. And since we never replaced it, I found that the E of the end of this matched with the E of Shasat Fazis. If you're wondering, it means hail the melody. Yeah. And the idea there is that it's a call of approval from the sergeant. And I think about it a little bit like a mob boss laughing at a joke, and it allows everyone else to kind of like be like, oh, okay, it's cool to laugh. And they all join in after that sergeant's.
Yeah, then the song begins proper. Yeah.
Exactly. Like in the beginning, it's just vocals of silence, vocals followed by silence. And no one says anything. But once you get the hail the beauty or hail the melody, everyone else, okay, it's all good. You can kind of join in here. So that coupled with all the stomps and stuff were all samples that we had to either record or find. And you can kind of hear some of these.
So you're clapping in your room by yourself, you're stomping in your room by yourself. It's just a whole lot of rowdiness.
That's my life. So yeah, just adding more and more layers. And then I found this cool like Japanese sample of schoolgirls in an all-girls school, and they were doing this kind of, I don't know, some sort of game, and I cut and stretched and pitched so that it would work and sound like the soldiers chanting something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
And so there's like a call and response section, which allows them to kind of join in, and you get this whole. But yeah, that's kind of a little sneak peek into how these things work, and just how we try to make the soundtracks quite different. There's a lot more involvement in the second soundtrack so that it really sells that adventure mode vibe, which is a lot more fast paced and fun rather than that kind of slower paced fortress mode. The music took a little bit of a backseat. Here it's a kind of in your face. So yeah, those are some of the differences between the fortress mode soundtrack and the adventure mode soundtrack.
Amazing. And you guys can pick up both soundtracks. They're on sale right now on Steam as part of the festival. Where can people find out more about your music, Dabu?
Anywhere you can think of. So YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Bandcamp. We also have the first vinyl for the first Fortress Mode soundtrack on sale through Fangamer. But yeah, I'm also on Instagram, on Twitter. Chef Dabu is usually my handle everywhere, but you can just search Dabu on YouTube. That's probably our most active community.